Hello.
Hello.
Whoa.
Ho, ho, ho.
It's so quiet. Nobody's talking this morning.
I'm
We
still
might
waking
get-
up.
We're pensive.
Yeah. Hope everybody's doing good.
Like a great cat you have there.
Yeah. He's Cheryl banished him from her office, so I get him. As he climbs all over, dripping the surface. He has a twin brother, but he's not quite as friendly. He's around somewhere.
Hi, Ed. How is Audrey doing?
Good morning. Oh, Audrey is slowly recovering.
Yay.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Oh, I'm so relieved.
Talked to her this morning and she's beginning to sound like herself.
Good. Tell
Oh,
her we said hi.
Thank you.
Ed, this is Beth. I sent a card to Audrey to your address, but it came back. So I'm gonna have to get your updated address.
Oh, I can give you the address to send a card to.
Okay,
It's Audrey Clary, room 473A, UMass University campus, 55 North Lake Ave, Worcester, Mass. 01655.
excellent. Now everybody who hears the recording will know her address and can flood her with cards.
Excuse me.
Hi. How are you, Becca?
It's me, Sammy.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sammy. That's my fault.
This is my piggy Astrid.
Wow.
well,
Very nice.
Oh, look at that. Oh,
So glad that he came to worship with us this morning.
Morning, Aaron.
Good morning, sir. I'm so pleased to hear about Audrey. It sounds like things are moving along swimmingly.
Well, she's got to get her lungs clear. That's the big effort.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
And you're hanging in there?
So far, the children have been good on visiting.
Good.
Oh, good.
Come here, Kip.
Hi, Aaron.
Good morning, Steve.
Can you see me?
I can.
I can't see me, but that's okay.
You look good.
Maybe you need new glasses.
Or maybe not, Steve.
Or maybe not. Who was that?
Or
Hi, how you doing?
good.
Oh, hi, Mara. Yeah, I can see you.
Cheryl, when we reach the end of the slide system, we can move to the service.
Hello?
And we can mute all.
Okay, we'll do.
He'll mute us when we.
chalice lighting this morning are the words of J. Abernathy Jr. We affirm that love is our greatest purpose. Accepting one another is our truest form of faithful living. The search for truth is our constant star. We pledge our hearts, minds, and hands to challenge injustice with courage, to find hope in times of fear, and to live out our Unitarian Universalist values every day as a beloved community. Thus do we covenant with each other and with all that is sacred in life. Friends, I want to welcome this morning singer-songwriter Brooke Campbell, who joins us from Brooklyn, New York, to share with us her very special music. Welcome, Brooke.
Hi, thank you. I'm really glad to be here. When I sparkle, you burst into flames. So I douse it all, I become plain. To be small enough for you to love. To be small enough for you to love. Darling, can you feel it gives me pain to only be as large as you ordain. To be small enough for you to love. To be small enough for you to love. All is so dire on the high wire when there's no love, and then so sweet, air so concrete when all is love. Mysteries abound more all the time, but never overwhelm when you are mine. Let me feel my shape and let it stay. Take it in yourself, don't look away. Winds are brewing down in the southeast, coming up the coast to catch my wings. Take me out across the open sea. Don't you want to come along with me? All is so dire on the high wire when there's no love, and then so sweet, air so concrete when all is love. Nothing's ever sane until the spark within's allowed to have its way.
Thank you so much, Brooke. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Worcester's online Sunday morning worship service. We are so glad that you've joined us virtually this morning. It's an act of love that we gather in this way during this time of pandemic response. We hope that this service gives you an opportunity to pause for a few minutes to gather in community so that we might care for each other, take a moment to reflect on our own well-being, discover opportunities for spiritual refreshment and service in the wider world, even as we are at a personal distance. We'll gather this way through the winter. Through the next few months, our religious exploration program will be offering opportunities for children and youth to gather virtually as well. Please visit www.uucworcester.org for more information on these get-togethers, as well as other opportunities to meet for discussion and support. For safety purposes and so that we might come to know you better, as you are able, please list your name on your video feed. Please note that this service is being live streamed on Facebook and is being recorded for future availability on the church YouTube channel, as well as our website worship archive. Following the service this morning, you are invited to join us for a virtual fellowship hour. Once again, welcome and thank you for joining us this morning. Our opening words this morning by Omid Safi. The Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh, a living sage who was nominated by Martin Luther King for the Nobel Peace Prize, recommends that we ask those closest to us a simple and powerful question that has the power to transform our relationship. Please, tell me how I can love you better. It's good to remember that the greatest truths are often simple. I wonder what it would be like to have this as the basis of our daily interactions, one person at a time. What a powerful, simple, and humble gift to offer one another and our own selves. These days, there is so much pain and suffering in the world. What's outward shows up on our inside. So many relationships are filled with turmoil, tension, and resentment. Individuals, families, communities, nations, the world community, the natural cosmos are all filled with tension. We need peace and harmony in our own hearts and in our own interpersonal relations, as we need peace in the world. Yes, this I know. We are not doomed to live like this. More and more I find us yearning to be whole, to be healed, and to live in harmony, but not knowing how. I speak not as one who has found the answers, but this much I know. Something magical and beautiful happens when we ask each other this magical and loveliest of inquiries. My beloved, how can I make you feel loved today? Tell me, my love, how I can love you better. Our opening hymn this morning, Make Channels for Streams of Love.
Make channels for the streams of love, that they may broadly run, and love has overflowing streams to
I'd like to invite Robin Mitskovich, our Religious Exploration Director, to share with us our Religious Exploration moment. Robin.
Hi, everybody. This is Robin. Good morning. Happy Valentine's Day. This morning, during our religious exploration time with the young people of our church, we went over some of the initiatives that the Unitarian Universalist Association were doing in conjunction with Valentine's Day, or the 30 days leading up to Valentine's Day. Noting that Valentine's Day may be a beautiful, lovely celebration of love for many people, but it's also a difficult time for people who are sad, lonely, missing people, and also people who are oppressed. So the Unitarian Universalist Association's Siding with Love initiative is something that hopes to promote universal love for all and lifting up voices of the oppressed through social media and through justice events across the country, specifically focusing on people like the people and initiatives like immigration reform, racial justice, and rights for our LGBTQIT plus community. So we heard some great young voices within our association speak to what they are doing to side with love. And we also all are working on the 8th principle that may be something that we propose to adopt as an association and a church, which names that we believe in lifting up our beloved community to build a more diverse and multicultural community by dismantling racism and other oppressions. So the kids were very engaged, very excited that they could have a voice in this as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robin. Our reading this morning comes from Anne Morrow Lindbergh, Gifts from the Sea. When you love someone, you do not love them all the time in exactly the same way, from moment to moment. It's an impossibility. It's even a lie to pretend to. And yet this is exactly what most of us demand. We have so little faith in the ebb and flow of life, of love, of relationships. We leap at the flow of the tide and resist in terror its ebb. We are afraid it will never return. We insist on permanency, on duration, on continuity, when the only continuity possible in life as in love is in growth, in fluidity, in freedom. How can one learn to take the trough of the wave? It is easier to understand here on the beach, where the breathlessly still ebb tide reveals another life below the level which mortals usually reach. In this crystalline moment of suspense, one has a sudden revelation of the special kingdom at the bottom of the sea. So beautiful is the still hour of the sea's withdrawal, as beautiful as the sea's return. We come once again to that moment in our service when we're given an opportunity to share that which is symbolic of our own efforts and values, that which we collect in order to sustain ourselves and the world that we love, especially at this moment also the congregation that we love. An offering, which you are invited to participate in this morning by either texting 508-231-5335 or by visiting www.uucworcester.org/donate. At this time, our morning offering will be received.
just doing things. What's that? Oh, I can dial. I'll speak quickly.
Valentine's Day. Ooh, is our thing on?
Friends, I want to apologize that I neglected to mention that this week was also a 50-50 collection. For those of you who would like to make a different contribution or another one, you're welcome to do so. Our 50-50 collection this month is in service to the YWCA's domestic violence program that operates the Daybreak Shelter here in Worcester. I have for years served on the advisory board for the Daybreak program as well as the domestic violence program. It's a necessary and important program in our community that assists women in particular and their families in moving away from domestic violence and finding recourse through the courts, as well as to rehouse themselves and to reestablish themselves and ground themselves in communities that support and honor them, and providing necessary resources for the thriving of their families. It has been a long-standing program in our community dating back to the 1960s and 70s, and has become ever more necessary during this time of pandemic, when instance of domestic violence has been on the rise as people have been stuck in their homes. So it is important for us to remember on a day when we celebrate love that there are important experiences where communities can provide what is necessary in order for people to regain that sense within themselves, especially if they have faced intimate partner violence in our community. So I invite you to contribute as you desire. We will split our contributions this morning between the domestic violence program and the congregation, anything that was not contributed as a pledge. Next week, I will hope to have a member of the YWCA join us in order to express their gratitude, but also to share with you some important information about what the program is doing currently. And I apologize that I neglected to mention this prior to the offering this morning. if we can move to stop share, and we come to that time in our service when we are given pause to consider what is deepest in our hearts or most profoundly on our minds, or in the work of our hands in the days that have transpired or in the prospect of days to come. Joys and sorrows that touch us deeply and are given another measure of meaning because of our capacity to share them in the midst of a company that claims us as a co-journeyer. So I invite those of you who have joys or sorrows this morning to either place your joy or sorrow in the chat. If you would like me to read it aloud, please begin that chat message with "please read" so that I can find it quickly. Or if you would like to share in person so that we might call on you in turn, please open your microphone and we will do that as well. Are there joys or sorrows to be shared this day? Ed Clary, you do have a joy or sorrow to share this morning?
Good morning. I have two joys. The first is that my wife Audrey and lifelong friend is showing signs of recovering from COVID. That's a great joy. The second joy is that within our society, we're having more and more people trying to live integration, and that will, in the long term, get our country united. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ed. Andrea.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Excellent. My joy is that, as many of you already know, that we have moved. We are officially in our new house. We moved on the 4th. And we're all settled in. Baby is settled in. The cats are settled in. And one thing that I did, because we moved from an area where I've been there 30 years, I know everyone, I feel comfortable there, to here where I don't know anyone. I sent out a letter to my neighbors with pictures of myself and William and Victor and the 2 cats, and just like a 1-page note introducing ourselves and, welcoming advice on home ownership or recreational places or places to eat, things like that. I sent them out last week, and yesterday, one of the neighbors in front, they have 2 dogs, saw that I was pulling in and pulled in behind me and was so excited. He's like, that was such a smart thing to do, with it being winter and COVID, to, reach out and let us know who you are. And he was very friendly. His wife was really excited to have us in the neighborhood. So we're reaching out in this time. We're finding ways to do that. So I felt really good about that and the reception.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Andrea, and congratulations on your new home.
Thank you.
Laura Lenahan writes, my heart breaks for the 3 lives lost this weekend and many displaced from 2 fires that hit our Worcester families. Winter is very hard for our Worcester firefighters. And as a congregation, we pause for a moment of silence in solidarity with our community as we mourn the loss of 3 beloved people and the loss of property in 2 areas of the city, and for those families that have been displaced. We offer our hearts, our minds, and our hands. Amen. Maura Rouse writes, I hold my sister Julia Myers and her husband Daniel in my thoughts. He has Parkinson's, and it is a very tough journey. Let our hearts and minds go with you, Maura, and with your family. Denise Darragran writes, 30 years ago today, I gave birth. It has been a joyous ride with my boy. He is smart, creative, and irreverent, And I adore him, as do we, Denise. Congratulations and happy birthday to your son. Paul Marr, do you have a joy or sorrow to share?
Yes, this past week I went on Tuesday. I had a medical procedure to check things out, and everything was okay, which is great. And I'd like to thank Diane Mann for giving me a ride. You know, she got up real early and beyond the call of duty and gave me a ride to Auburn, where I had my medical. I'm just gonna say medical procedure, but I'm healthy. There's no polyps anywhere, so you can fill in the rest.
Congratulations,
Yep.
Paul. That is happy news. Thank you for sharing that with us this morning, and congratulations. Chris Ryan, do you have a joy or sorrow to share this morning?
No, I do not. Sorry about that.
Okay. Are there any other joys or sorrows at this time? Our last this morning from Bernadette and Brian Nelson, writing, "It's hard to live with chronic pain." And it is. And we hold you and surround you during those times of difficulty. Let us be in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, source of our inner and outermost being. We come this morning with gratitude in our hearts for new homes, for the arrival of our children, and for the celebration of their day of birth. We come with gratitude in our hearts for neighbors who welcome us, and for the opportunity to establish ourselves in community. And we grieve this day. Grieve the loss of life, grieve the loss of property, even as we honor the service of so many. We recognize that loss during this time is especially difficult, and under the circumstances this weekend, so very tragic. Help us be ever mindful of the gift of our own health and well-being. Help us in those moments when we face our own pain. Help us to find the strength within us to persevere and the courage to face life's challenges. Help us discover the resources necessary to draw our circle of welcome ever more wide. And in that, remember our own connections and our own ability to provide that which is needful for healing and wholeness. Let us be ambassadors of the spirit of life and love in all that we are and all that we do. Amen. And blessed be. Friends, once again, Brooke Campbell.
Broken strands reach for each other in the silence. There's a mending that only happens in the quiet. So drown it out when you must. But today, try to trust. Light passes in patches on the mountains. There's no even flow from the fountain. So Go thirsty when you must, but today try to trust. There's a lady on the hillside, strong and tall. Light pours through her gown. She is ever on your side, with her hands upturned, feet soft on the ground. Take a walk into the deep woods. Follow her heart.
Thank you so much, Brooke. So I want to begin my reflection this morning with a story told by my colleague Eric Walker Wickstrom. He writes, once upon a time, there was a girl named Wendy. She loved grass, lawn grass. What can I say? She loved grass. She loved the feel of it between her toes. She loved the smell of it when it was freshly mown. She loved its bright green color. Wendy loved grass more than about anything. One day, her family decided to go to the beach. Wendy wasn't too sure about it. Come on, said her older brother, we can go swimming. We can collect rocks and shells together, said her mom. And you can bury me in the sand, said her dad. It sounded like fun, so they all piled in the car and off they went. When they got to the beach, it sure looked great, like nothing Wendy had ever seen, but when she first touched the sand, it was way, way, way too hot. This isn't cool like grass, she said. I wish the sand was grass. Now, Wendy had a good luck fairy who followed her around and heard her wish and decided to grant it. And within a flash, all of the sand turned into grass. Now it was her family's turn to be not too sure. Wendy, of course, was delighted. I guess I won't be buried today, said Dad. That's okay, said Mom. Let's collect some shells. Everyone went down to where the water lapped the edge of the grass and where polished rocks and beautiful shells were lying all about. And they all set out looking for the shiniest and the biggest or the most colorful they could find. Everyone except Wendy. Ouch, she said. The rocks and shells hurt my feet. I wish the rocks were soft like grass, she thought to herself, and as soon as she did, her good luck fairy, who could hear her thoughts as well as her words, made it so. The rocks and the shells turned to grass too. Family looked at one another. Well, they said, at least they're swimming. Everybody laid their beach towels on the grass and changed into their bathing suits. Last one in is a rotten egg, Wendy's older brother cried, and he ran into the waves, followed closely by Wendy's sister. Their delighted squeals trailing behind, Wendy followed tentatively, but when her toe touched the water, she said, yuck, it's wet and cold. This time she didn't even have to think it. The fairy changed the water into grass without her even having to ask for it. Everyone turned to her and said, Wendy! But what was she to do? But her family was very understanding. They were, after all, Unitarian Universalists, so they decided to make the best of it. Let's have lunch, said Mom and Dad. So they got out their picnic basket. They found a spot on the now wide lawn, spreading out the checkered tablecloth, and they all set to it. Wendy was in heaven. After all, didn't she love grass more than about anything? But she had to admit she was beginning to feel a bit bored and something just didn't feel right. After all, everywhere she looked, there was nothing but grass. And all of the sounds of the beach, the waves, the seagulls, all of it had gone. Grass was nice, but maybe not so much when it's all that there was. Well, said her mom, we went to the beach and we're at a lawn. This isn't the way it's supposed to be. What do you mean? Wendy asked. Her dad said, you made it all the same. The sand, the rocks, the water, each was different, and you made them the same because their differences made you feel uncomfortable. But those differences also made them special and beautiful, and without them, there's a whole lot missing. In fact, everything that makes this place what it is missing. And that means that you're missing out on everything you really came here for. Wendy thought about it for a while. She did want to collect rocks and shells. She'd seen some really beautiful ones, and the water was cold, but her brother and sister looked like they were having a lot of fun. And the idea of burying her father in the sand was too good to pass up. I wish it was all back the way it was, she thought, and the good luck fairy made her wish come true. End of story. Or is it? I don't know about you, but I find that over the past year, I've wallowed in a lot of Wendy moments when I've spent a great deal of energy wishing that life was different, that the way of the world would return to the ways I've learned to love it. Or perhaps you've had the adverse reaction. Your Wendy moments have been confronting the monotony of grass, and it's all grass. The same thing you have craved once, solitude, time to read, time to take a nap, time to do all the things you'd put off, now appears to be the burden you once carried in the hope that someday you'd do something different. Either way, the challenge is to find love in the midst of the life you are experiencing at any given moment. And to find love means to risk loss. Hear the words of my colleague and friend, Forrest Church, now of beloved spirit. When I was young, I thought death took courage. I was wrong. Dying may take courage, but death requires little courage at all. It is love that requires courage, because the people we love most may die before we do. Dare to love, and we instantly become vulnerable, a word that means susceptible to being wounded. Our mother struggles for life in a hospital. Our son risks his in a distant land. At such moments, the courage to love is nothing less than the courage to lose everything we hold most dear. Love another with all your heart, and we place our hearts in jeopardy. One so great that the world as we know it can disappear between the time we pick up the telephone and when we put it down. Love is grief's advance party. Every time we give our heart away, we risk having it dashed to pieces. Fear promises a safer path. Refuse to give away your heart, and it will never be broken. And it's true. Armored hearts are invulnerable. We can eliminate a world of trouble from our lives simply by closing our hearts. And yet the trouble from which we are liberating ourselves is necessary trouble. We need it as we need breath. Since the most precious and enduring life work is signed by love, to avoid the risk of love is to cower from life's only perfect promise. We do not and cannot possess the ones we love, for we hold them on loan. The hard truth makes the courage to love also the courage to lose. It speaks most eloquently when everything we cherish is in jeopardy, when our expectations for the way life ought to be are interrupted and challenged by death. End quote. To be challenged by death is fundamentally to be challenged by change. Death, as I often tell my students in the class I teach each spring at Worcester State University, is a perpetual experience. Little deaths happen all the time, changes that challenge us to adjust our ways of being in order to garner meaning and wisdom from our experiences. And I want to remind them the opposite of life is not death, it is hopelessness. Death is a part of life itself. Hopelessness is that which impedes life, the inability to meet the challenges of our own living by succumbing to the sense that there is no meaning, nothing to gain. A sense of futility takes the place of that which could otherwise energize us to take on the challenges of a changing world. Remember the words of Princeton theologian Cornel West that I have used many times before. To live is to wrestle with despair without giving despair the last word. Such is life. Learning that despair, which is the emotion most associated with loss, is a constant confrontation in living. To live is to wrestle. To live is to wrestle. I'm mindful of this truth as it has been made plain to us in the scriptures of the Hebrew Bible, for example. In the very first book of that Bible, as we have come to experience it in Genesis, chapter 32, we find Jacob was left alone and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he struck him on his hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for the day is breaking." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." So he said to him, "What's your name?" And he said, "Jacob." Then the man said, "You shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with humans and have prevailed." Then Jacob asked him, "Please tell me your name." But he said, "Why is it that you ask me my name?" And there he blessed him. So Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, "For I have seen God face to face, and yet my life is preserved." Frederick Buechner, theologian and spiritual writer, author, reflects on this story this way. Out of the dark, someone leapt at me with such force that it knocked me to my back. It was a man. I could not see his face. His naked shoulder was pressed so hard against my jaw that I thought he would break it. His flesh was chill and wet as the river. He was the god of the river. My bulls had raped him. My flocks had fouled him, and my children pissed on him. He would not let me cross without a battle. I got my elbow into the pit of his throat, and I forced him off, and I threw him over onto his back. His breath was hot on my face as I straddled him. My breath came in gasps. Quick as a serpent, he twisted loose, and I was caught between his thighs. The grip was so tight that I could not move. He had both hands pressed to my cheek. He was pushing my face into the mud, grunting with the effort. Then he got me on my belly with his knee in the small of my back. He was tugging my head upward toward him. He was breaking my neck. He was not the god of the river. He was Esau. He had slain all my sons. He had forded the river to slay me. Just as my neck was about to snap, I butted his head toward with the last strength, and I caught him square, and for an instant his grip loosened and I was free. Over and over we rolled into the reeds at the water's edge. We struggled in each other's arms. He was on top, then I was on top. We knew that I knew that they were not Esau's arms. It was not Esau. I did not know who it was. I did not know who I was. I only knew my terror and that it was dark as death. I only knew that what the stranger wanted was my life. For the rest of the night, we battled in the reeds with the Jabbok roaring down through the gorge above us. Each time I thought I was lost, I escaped somehow. There were moments when we lay exhausted in each other's arms, the way a man and a woman lie exhausted from passion. There were moments when I seemed to be prevailing. It was as if he was letting me prevail. And then he was at me with a new fury. But he did not prevail. For hours we went on this way. Our bodies were slippery with mud. We were panting like beasts. We could not see each other. We spoke no words. I did not know why we were fighting. It was like fighting in a dream. He outweighed me. He outwrestled me, but he did not overpower me. He did not overpower me until the moment came to overpower me. When that moment came, I knew that he could have made it come whenever he wanted. I knew that although the night he had been waiting, I knew that all through the night he had been waiting for that moment. He had his knee on my hip. The rest of his weight was on top of my hip. And then the moment came and he gave a fierce downward thrust and I felt pain. It was less pain than I felt than the pain I saw. I saw it as light. I saw it as pain, as dazzling bird-shaped light. The pain's beak impaled me with light. It blinded me with the light of wings. I knew I was crippled and done for. I could do nothing but cling now, cling for my life. I cling for death, actually. My arms trussed him, my legs locked him. For the first time he spoke. He said, "Let me go." The words were more breath than sound. They scalded my neck where his mouth was touching. He said, "Let me go, for the day is breaking." Only then did I see it, the first shudder of light beyond the farthest hills. And I said, "I will not let you go." I would not let him go for fear that the day would take him as the dark had given him. It was my life I clung to. My enemy was my life. My life was my enemy. I said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Even if his blessing meant death, I wanted it more than life. "Bless me," I said. "I will not let you go unless you bless me." He said, "Who are you?" There was mud in my eyes, my ears, and my nostrils, and my hair. My name tasted of mud when I spoke it. "Jacob," I said. "My name is Jacob." "It is Jacob no longer," he said. "Now you are Israel. You have wrestled with God and with men. You have prevailed. That is the meaning of the name Israel." I was no longer Jacob. I was no longer myself. Israel was who I was. The stranger had said it. I tried to say it the way he said it, Yisrael. I tried to say the new name I was to the new name I tried to say the new name I was to the new self I was. I could not see him. I was too close. He was too close to me to see. I could only see the curve of his shoulders above me. I saw the first glimmer of dawn on his shoulders like a wound. I said, "What is your name?" I could only whisper it. "Why do you ask me my name?" We are both of us whispering. He did not wait for my answer. He blessed me as I had asked him. I do not remember his words of his blessing, or even if there were words. I remember the blessing of his arms holding me and the blessing of his arms letting me go. I remember as blessing the black shape of him against the rose-colored sky. I remember as a blessing the one glimpse I had of his face. It was more terrible than the face of dark or of pain or of terror. It was the face of light. No words can tell of it. Silence cannot tell of it. Sometimes I cannot believe that I saw it and lived, but that I only dreamed I saw it. Sometimes I believe I saw it and I only dream that I live. End of story. Or not. So here's my turn on Cornel West's admonition. To love is to wrestle with despair without giving despair the last word. It is to confront one's own actions and the world in such a way where by wrestling we come into a clearer understanding of our own responsibilities, our own sense of worth, and perhaps more importantly, the worth of creation itself and all that has been created. We come into clarity about who we are, what our true name is, and thus our purpose. This is the moment that we are in as a people, and our wrestling has illumined much that we must now address if love itself is to be made manifestly whole and real. Inequity, inequality, climate devastation, bigotry, white supremacy, systemic racism, health and education disparities. This is what has been illumined. But it is not all that has been illumined. The potential of humankind to survive and then thrive has also been illumined by science, illumined by cooperative efforts among compassionate people, so that many have been given a chance to live in the midst of our own dis-ease. And we are on our way to the other side of the river of our common despair. What name shall we be given for our efforts? How long, how shall love be defined moving forward? In his book, Love, A History, Simon May concludes, love should be modeled on how humans are commanded to love God, not on how God is said to love humans. Unlike God, everything humans do is thoroughly conditioned, interested, time-bound, and dependent on our building a robust self amid the vagaries of fate and vulnerability. And we have a supreme need that God, by definition, doesn't. Indeed, that he was invented to fulfill, to be united with what we take to be the ground of our own being, to experience our life as indestructibly secure, vivid, and anchored. In essence, to find home. These are all ways of trying to articulate what is called ontological rootedness. It's a fancy way of saying to find our grounding, to find home, the search for which is what love is ultimately about. So, for those who have spent so much time at home this year, it's an interesting question. What grounds us now? How shall we be known in the world as it has been made plain to us now? What love and light has our wrestling illumined? And what's love got to do with it? Amen. And blessed be. Our closing hymn, Love Will Guide Us.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road
like to invite Reverend Cheryl Lachey to join me for our litany this morning. No one is outside the circle of love, by Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, the now president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, and Reverend Erica Hewitt, who is responsible for our worship ministry of the UUA. We know that hurt moves through the world, perpetuated by action, inaction, and indifference. Our values call us to live in the reality of the heartbreak of our world, remembering that
no one is outside the circle of love.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
No one is outside the circle of love.
And you can continue.
We who are Unitarian Universalist not only affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, we also affirm the inherent wholeness of every being, despite apparent brokenness.
No one is outside the circle of love. We know that things break or break down, promises, friendship, sobriety, hope, communication. This breaking happens because our human hearts and our very institutions are frail and imperfect. We make mistakes. Life is messy.
No one is outside the circle of love. With compassion as our guide, we seek the well-being of all people. We seek to dismantle systems of oppression that undermine our collective humanity. We believe that we're here to guide one another toward love.
No one is outside the circle of love. No matter how fractured we are or once were, we can make whole people of ourselves. We are whole at our core because of the great, unnameable, sometimes inconceivable love in which we live.
No one is outside the circle of love.
Our benediction this morning are the words of Frederick Gillis. May the love that overcomes all differences, that heals all wounds, that puts to flight all fears, that reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us, now and always. Amen. Once again, beloved, Brooke Campbell.
Oh, you walked in the room and I was a feather on my feet. What a lucky day, what a lucky, your heart blew right through me and mine beat and beat. What a lucky day, what a lucky day. I waited so long, I shivered alone in dark and icy places I hope you never know. Waiting to come home just to be known, and now you're here and there's nothing left to know. Now you are beside me almost every single day, and each one is a lucky day. It's a lucky, lucky day. Oh, couples touch hands and remember how it feels to be in a lucky way on a lucky, lucky day. I waited so long, I shivered alone in dark and icy places I hope you never know. Waiting to come home just to be known, and now you're here and there's nothing left to know. ever have seen my soul. Was it you had heard the same deep dark bells toll? Kind that melt your marrow, make your bones tremble and roll. But you also saw a tiny light and strained toward its soul. That night you wrapped around me like a warm coat in the cold. And I say, what a lucky day, what a lucky, lucky day. You were wrapped around me and I'm gleaming like gold. What a lucky day, what a lucky, lucky day. Oh, what a lucky day.
Brooke, thank you so much for your music this morning. What an honor it has been to have you with us. So very grateful to you.
Thank you. It's wonderful.